The Nature and Development Foundation is leading another round of civil action targeted at getting government to repeal the Environmental Protection Mining in Forest Reserves Regulation LI 2462, which allows unfettered access into Ghana's forest reserves. The group today held a dialogue based on a legal opinion which is pointing out some major gaps in this very law, which environmentalists are suggesting could be detrimental to the protection of Ghana's forest reserves. We'll be speaking to 2023 PAV and Research Analyst of the Year, Rasta Sari Donko, who was at this very forum. But just before we get into that, just listen to lawyer Clement Akapame, who from the Taylor Crab initiative, point out some of the concerns that the group has with this very airline.
This law was passed on the blind side of everybody. But what do you see wrong with this particular law legally?
Well, from the stakeholders that we've interacted with, those who ordinarily work in this sector, they appeared they had very little or no knowledge about the processes leading to the passage of this regulation. What this regulation sets out to do is very interesting. I mean, to permit mining in forest reserves. I mean, clearly, forest reserves are designated areas where we have put aside, and clearly one of the activities you cannot do there is mining. So the main thing I see is that it's a law that goes against, the primary principles of setting up forest reserves. So that if we do not want to have these forest reserves as forest reserves any longer, then we should go through the right processes to de-gazette it. Otherwise, you see the confusion in the law. Who is regulating it? Is it the EPA that regulates it? Is it the Minerals Commission that regulates this activity, or the Forestry Commission? But the law is clear on the mandates of all these institutions. The Forestry Commission has been given mandate under the Forestry Commission Act to regulate and protect the forest. So if you are now allowing mining in the forest reserve, it comes against the mandate of the Forestry Commission. But if it is no longer a forest reserve, then the Forestry Commission is not conflicted. So we need to be clear on what we want. If we want to keep these areas as forest reserves, then we should. If we don't, let's follow the right process and not, because the law actually is bringing a lot more confusion, and it will make the situation that we're having right now with illegal mining and all sorts of things happening in the mining sector worse if we don't take steps to
You have described it as incongruous.
Yes.
And other things, in fact, in 3 thematic areas. Tell me, what is wrong with this law?
Clearly, it is a law to protect the environment, but it's a law to mine in forest reserve. It doesn't add up. So, if it's a law to protect the environment when it comes to mining in forest reserves, this law should have actually been the law that prevents and puts restrictions and makes it extremely difficult to even get permission to go close to any forest reserve. But that's not the case here. It looks like it is now become a permitted activity, and because it's a permitted activity, then let's have regulations to do it and set up committees to regulate it. That's the key thing I have. And whether or not this law should even be led by the EPA, and finally whether using a legislative instrument for a very sensitive issue like this is the way to go. This should have been done by an act of parliament, so that we have our members of parliament debate this, and then when they agree with it, they pass it, but not through legislative instruments where the passage is less rigorous as opposed to passing a bill into an act of parliament. So these are my issues. And also the penalty regime, the offences. The penalties are very weak compared to what we have in existing law. So what are we trying to achieve? So we need to look at all these things. And these are the preliminary comments we have on the LI as passed. Yeah.
Do you sense something fishy, as if it is to serve the interest of somebody?
So it's actually not about sensing something fishy. It appears that there is a certain activity of mining already going on in our forest reserves, and maybe in an attempt to find a way of regularizing it, this law is passed. But that is not the way to go. I'm saying that the question of setting aside a forest estate as a forest reserve is a very important issue. We didn't just create these forest reserves. A certain process was gone through and was put aside for certain purposes. We are now talking about climate change. We are talking about our commitments under the NDCs. We've done all these things and now we are allowing mining in all our forest reserves. It cannot be possible.
Unfortunately, Erastus Asare-Donkor is joining us in studio. It's been a long day for Erastus because he's been at this stakeholder dialogue on this very law that we're talking about. And congratulations once more, Erastus, for, of course, the hard work you've done. Well deserved. And, of course, we must commend you for this. But you're keeping up the fight. And that's what I like about this. Now looking at some of the aspects of our legal regime and the laws that are thwarting the, fight against illegal mining. Let's start off with this very law that, civil society and even you, I believe, have some concerns with. What's this very law that we're referring to?
So it's the LI 2462. It's supposed to protect our forest reserves. And so somehow it's supposed to be a better option than the environmental guidelines we used to have previously. But if you look critically, just like the lawyer is saying at this particular regulation, you find out it has lesser punishment when it comes to violation of environmental laws and other things if you go into the forest to commit any crime as compared to existing laws that we do have. And it is also opening up even protected forests for mining. So for example, it says in there that in the interest of the public, the president can even de-gazette some of the protected forests, GSB areas,
really?
Globally significant biodiversity areas for mining in the interest of the public.
A very enormous power to give to
and so that's what he talks about, that it defeats the purpose of protecting. If you're protecting something, then you are calling in for stiffer sanctions, even for people who are trying to get into protected forest and even production
and
forest.
Just for clarity, is this replacing all other forms of, the regulatory regimes that we have in the past, or it's supposed to complement what's already there?
Again, that is what the lawyer, I'm not the lawyer, but that's what the lawyer seeks to talk about, that is the contradiction that he finds, because then we have other existing legislations that deal with certain things in there. So there was no need at all for this to come in. So it looks like mining is happening already, which of course is happening. Many of the forest reserves have been given out for mining. Yesterday I got some videos and pictures from the Seshwi area, between Seshwi Debiso and another town in that area, the Kokuswa Forest Reserve, which of course people have invaded and now destroying. So before the LI was even set up, records indicate that there were only 3 mining operations in production forest reserves. 3.
Yes.
Now, since November 2022, when the law came into effect, 8 new mining licenses have been granted to mine in forest reserves, including globally significant biodiversity areas. These are protected areas where you find rare tree species that you cannot find anywhere, and they are supposed to be protected. Now, they've all been given out for mining. And we have Draw River Forest Reserve and GSBA, which has been given out to Better Land Ghana Limited, covering as much as over 84% of the forest itself. We have New South Forest Reserve and GSBA is being given to Capsod Mining Limited, covering 18% of that particular forest. Bointano in Samreboy Forest Reserve and GSBA, which has been given to Unipower Mining Company Limited. So 8 of them. And we don't know, maybe even Kakum National Park will come up for mining.
Which means that technically the law gives, the power to an individual to decide as and when you could go into a forest reserve.
Exactly. And before, all these areas were protected. All GSBA areas were protected. Simply out of. And even you heard the last minister talk about it previously, that forest reserves are no-go areas, they are red zones. But now, the law that is supposed to further protect the forest is now opening up even the protected forest for mining, which spells a doom for all of us going into the future.
Erastus, the question about possibly a review or repealing everything that we've put up in this piece of legislation, what was it looking like that CSO appeals more to? Is it the case that they feel, well, let's just take this off the books, go back to the drawing board, and bring something completely new instead of just trying to fix what we have now?
So that's what CSOs have been talking about, and for example, this particular stakeholder engagement talked about that. Why don't we call for a repeal of this law? Because it's in bad taste. If you look at it compared to those who really want to protect the forest. If we really want to protect our forest reserves, then we have to repeal this law or amend it. Because as we speak with them, they say that the danger is that if this law exists, in future, somebody could go and amend it and say, including, say, national parks. And who knows, it will be given out for mining. And currently, even as we speak, we are finding illegal miners penetrating many of these forest reserves already, even before they are given out. You go to Tano Nimre, now if you see the extent of devastation, we came from there about 3 months ago, you see the devastation. After Akonta mining entered, more illegal miners have entered. Now the Samatex company, which relies and manages this forest reserve for centuries, is now spending its entire money trying to fight illegal miners in the forest. You go to Kokosua Forest Reserve, as I've told you, illegal miners have entered. Even at Tiwa Forest, we went there and you saw that illegal miners have encroached a portion of it and are already mining into it. So it shows clearly that we are not adding importance or urgency to saving these natural resources.
And just to wrap up on this conversation, because I believe the dialogue is not over, you would definitely be monitoring some of the conversations going on. But what's the overall picture in terms of what is likely to happen if we allow this law to remain on our books? What's the potential danger here?
So we're going to mine all our forest reserves. If you look at this one, the Draw River Forest Reserve, the Draw River Forest Reserve and GSBA, and here it is ML 2/236, given to Better Land Ghana Limited, covering as much as 84% of the forest. So the entire forest will be gone. And that is what is going to happen to all our forest reserves. It means that even...
and someone is sitting at home saying, well, that's speculation.
No, this is not speculation. It's on the website.
It will not be given to all.
This is on the website of the Forestry Commission.
Right.
So it's there. It's not something that we are making up. Yeah. All these things are there.
84.
84%. And so I think that we should be very careful the way we are treading. Already, if you look at their Pamprama Forest Reserve, it's almost gone. And people go in with prospecting licenses under the guise of prospecting for gold, which you don't even, the law does not allow you to use heavy equipment, but you find people using excavators to dig and mine the entire forest. So we are destroying all our natural resources, even the water source that are within this forest. And mind you, what we have seen as a trend is that whenever you go to the forest and they are mining, they mine blindly, and they believe that the mineral deposit sits within the wet areas. And so they destroy the water source within the forest itself, the very lifeblood of the forest. And I think we should take extra caution the way we are treading.
Erastus, thank you for joining this conversation. In fact, we all need to join hands with Erastus and just to sustain this fight against illegal mining. And also we are, of course, looking at a possible review of that law or LI which has been passed. You're watching The Pulse on the Joy News channel. When we get back, the Health Minister is appearing in Parliament today, answering questions on the renal dialysis unit of the Korle Bu Teaching Hospital. We'll tell you what he's been talking about when he arrived in Parliament today.